It's easy to become emotionally involved when listening to a case like this. But you must put your feelings to one side and consider the facts. We know the fire was started deliberately. The defendant threatened to kill his wife the evening before she died. A pair of gloves belonging to the defendant was found near the scene of the crime. Those gloves were fire damaged and bore traces of petrol. The defendant was at the barn several minutes before either of his sons arrived, giving him ample time to start the fire. All these facts are beyond dispute. Now, consider the enormous pressure he was under. His wife had left him for a man less than half his age. He'd lost custody of his daughter. His farm was failing, and it was a struggle just to keep his head above water. So imagine how he felt that night when he heard his wife and her lover in the barn, a few yards from his house. Imagine the rage he must have felt. I put it to you, the defendant started the fire with the intention of killing both Sarah Sugden and Richard Carter. And when you consider the facts, as I've asked you to, I suggest you will reach that conclusion. Therefore, I ask you to return a verdict of guilty.
My learned friend has asked us to consider the facts of the case. Very well. But here's one fact she didn't mention. On the night before his wife died, the defendant discovered that his 6-year-old daughter had been wandering alone in the middle of the night through the village. He was furious. He loved his daughter. He expected his wife to take care of her. He went into the pub and he told his wife exactly what he thought of her. He didn't choose his words very carefully, but that doesn't make him a killer. He has told us, under oath, that on the night the fire started, he was asleep in the house. He may have got to the barn before his sons, but that doesn't make him a killer. No. The only piece of evidence that directly implicated Jack Sugden was the original statement of Richard Carter. But Mr. Carter now tells us he was wrong. He didn't see Jack Sugden entering the barn or starting the fire. So what do we have left after considering the facts? Nothing. There is not one piece of evidence which proves conclusively that Jack Sugden killed his wife. Not one. Indeed, at the time she died, he was struggling, as he always has done, to build a future for the children he loved so much. He wouldn't deprive them of their mother, no matter how much hurt he felt. Nor would he risk being sent to prison, where he'd be unable to care for them. He's lost nearly everything over the past couple of months. Don't deprive him of his liberty for a crime he did not commit. I ask you to find him not guilty.
Any more news from Diane?
Mum's just been on the phone. You know Richie's changed his evidence.
No, I bet you rang and told me.
Made quite an impression, apparently. But then the prosecution woman made her final speech, and she was very persuasive.
So which way does she reckon it's going to go then?
It don't matter what we think, does it? It's up to jury.
Yeah, but they're bound to find him not guilty. I mean, we all know that he didn't do it, don't we?
Don't start, Edna.
Well, Mum says it could go either way. We'll just have to wait and see.
I would remind you that it is the task of the prosecution to prove guilt, not for the defense to prove innocence. Now, you have to choose, in the light of the evidence that you have heard, between two very different versions of what happened on the night of November the 16th. Did the defendant discover the barn on fire and desperately try to rescue his wife and Mr. Carter? Or did he deliberately set fire to the barn in the knowledge that his wife and Mr. Carter were inside with the intention of killing them both? That is the decision you have to make.